As we've already heard from Sean Morton and others, this is not the first time allegations have surfaced that the U.S. government is playing host to extraterrestrial biological entities, or EBEs. The first and most famous alleged contact was the Roswell flying saucer crash of 1947. This is the incident which the alien autopsy footage supposedly originated. But persistent rumors that not all of the aliens retrieved from the Roswell crash were dead. The final fate of the survivors, if any, is unknown. 2 years later, however, in 1949, another alien is reported to have survived the saucer crash, and this being, known as EBE-1, was taken into custody and kept at a safe house. EBE-1 supposedly suffered from chronic health problems, which the doctors at the time were helpless to treat. In 1988, another anonymous government source, codenamed Falcon, claimed that a second extraterrestrial biological entity, EBE-2, voluntarily became a guest of our government, allowing himself to be examined and interviewed. In this scenario, Area 51 became, for a time at least, a sort of extraterrestrial embassy, the setting for mankind's first attempt at diplomacy with beings from another world. The Testers Corporation has recently come out with a model kit of Gray, the extraterrestrial life form, and a scale model of the so-called sport model, the UFO Bob Lazar says he studied at Area 51. This UFO kit has quickly become one of the most successful model kits in the history of the company. If the military is in fact conducting tests of extraterrestrial spacecraft at Area 51, then where are the creators of these craft?
In his first appearance under the pseudonym Dennis, Bob Lazar was asked if there were any living aliens at Area 51. Clearly nervous, he evaded the questioning by saying, quote, "I really want to stay away from that right now," unquote. In subsequent interviews, however, he admitted catching a glimpse of two scientists talking to a strange, short figure with long arms. He also reported seeing several documents that seemed to contain first-hand information on alien civilizations.
Lazar is skeptical of a claim made by Falcon that a group of EBEs have been given complete control of a separate place within Dreamland, but he does admit reading a report of a tragic misunderstanding between military personnel and alien beings in the late 70s. Lazar states that it had to do with bullets that the MPs were carrying, and that the bullets might explode, possibly due to a field the aliens had generated in that area. This encounter supposedly resulted in the deaths of all humans involved by head wounds. If so, how does Victor fit into the jigsaw puzzle of questionable witnesses to alien presence at Area 51? Is he a hoaxer, a government dupe, or a frightened whistleblower with the hard evidence to back up his story? I made it very clear to Victor that his credibility was the entire issue here, and that everybody is going to think this is a hoax, and that how are they going to possibly verify this? What he said was that you could do anything you want in terms of verifying, any type of due diligence. He will, any questions put forward, he could do whatever type of checking. We could bring in experts, we could have it tape tested, we could, in fact, he encouraged all of these aspects. He just did not want his face and real name revealed. At Coleman's insistence, Victor agreed reluctantly to appear on camera, but only in disguise, in shadow, and with his voice electronically altered. The questions were agreed upon in advance, but during the actual interview, the discussion occasionally deviated from Victor's approved questions. What is your occupation at Area 51?
I won't answer that. I've had reason to be present at Area 51. Now, I'm not going to clarify whether or not I was there as an employee.
Are you saying you were there as a visitor?
I'm not going to specify why or in what capacity I was there, only that I was there.
Can you tell us how many times you were there?
When I agreed to this, my fundamental ground rule was that I would not be asked to divulge personal data that might help pinpoint my identity. If you continue to ask questions that are out of bounds, I won't hesitate to terminate this interview.
Are you saying that the number of times you were present at Area 51 is enough to pinpoint your identity?
Any specifics will narrow the field of suspects. Of course I could lie. Let's say I've been there 47 times, or anyway, more than once.
Let's turn to the tape itself. The copy you've supplied us is not the original tape.
No,
Was the original Area 51 when you copied it?
that's out of bounds.
Is it fair to assume that the copying of tapes at Area 51 is heavily restricted?
You can assume anything you'd like. I'd say that's a fair assumption. That's obvious. I will say that this tape was copied under special circumstances. Otherwise, copying it would have been impossible.
Can you be more specific?
More specific? Okay, I'm sure they figured this much out already. Recently, there was a wholesale transfer of video documentation from analog tape to digital disk storage. In a couple of instances, this allowed data to leak from a high system to a less high security system. Even so, this particular tape was the only... I think that's all I'll say about that.
Was there something about this particular clip that made it more accessible to be copied?
Not necessarily, no.
Was there something about the content that caused them to file it differently or give it special handling? The interview resumed only after a discussion of the ground rules. Have you personally seen the alien being that appears in this tape?
Yes, I have, but I stress I was not necessarily present at the interview session that appears on the tape. I'm not going to be specific. I may have encountered the being at another time.
What can you tell us about the alien interview that we're about to see?
This one is rather recent, very late in the series. The interview process has been ongoing since the beings arrived, which was in 1989. Approximately twice a month, they sit it down for a session that generally lasts from 3 to 5 hours. If they try to go longer than that, or if they schedule the session more frequently, the being becomes unresponsive. There's a fair amount of infighting among the scientists from different disciplines to get their questions asked.
What has the alien revealed?
Various minor technical details of the saucers. The physicists and engineers are frankly frustrated. They feel the being is withholding information. Possibly concepts are getting lost because all the information has to come through a telepath. But also it may be that the bulk of their scientific knowledge is just too advanced to be translated into our primitive conceptual framework. It's analogous to if a human scientist were to try to translate quantum mechanics into the grunts and screeches of a chimpanzee.
It's not a very flattering comparison.
Frankly, there's a high attrition rate for scientists in the program. You'd think that they'd be energized by the challenge, but a lot of them take the ego deflation very hard when they find out not only how much they don't know, but how much they are not even capable of understanding.